if my parents had any say over me, they'd go, oh, don't go and see that, you know, because it'll change your life, you know, which I suppose in a way it did.
It's a cult film, isn't it, you know, like, that's why we're here.
You can't understand it sitting in an office. You can't understand it walking around the streets of Sydney. You've got to be on a bike with the guy riding.
The point of the two stone runs was to recreate the funeral scene in the picture I had written in the funeral scene. Now, of course, having no budget and only having 16 cast members on bikes, I actually put the word out through the motorcycle community that I would be shooting a scene on the Gosford Expressway and all motorcyclists were welcome to participate. Well, on the Saturday morning, 400 turned up. And they were just the most fantastic group of people. Their eyes were bright, they listened to every direction. I walked up and down with a bullhorn for about half an hour, telling them we were making a great Australian picture, that it was going to be seen around the world, you know, on the most beautiful road in the world, and I wanted pride and so on. And they were just incredible. They were in formation, they didn't break formation. As a matter of fact, when we did the first U-turn to come back and I saw their faces in the helmets, it was like 400 method actors sitting there. They were one hand on the handlebars and they was, you know, it was, my hair stood up in the helmet, if you know what I mean. I wanted to write a script, obviously it was the first one you were going to write, about something I really knew about and was secure in, and one of those things was motorbikes. And I had just penetrated this amazing culture, just by accident. I mean, I had this Triumph motorbike, and people would stop and say, why don't you drop over this particular pub, the Forth and Clyde, on Thursday night and things, and I went down there and started to just hang out with these wild people, and just wanted to really understand, you know, why they were so really on the radical edge of the radical society being, you know, in that time about 1971, 72.
It's a Saturday afternoon at Balmain's Forth and Clyde Hotel, and it's business as usual. Two rival bikie gangs slug it out in a wild brawl with no holds barred. It's not an unfamiliar sight to Balmain residents, as this was Sydney's #1 bikie pub before it closed. But today, the violence is strictly for the movie cameras.
It was a very exciting time because the AFDC had just come into operation and nobody really knew what their charter was, except there was some money in there and you could go in and ask for it.
The director of Stone is Sandy Harbutt. He plays a leading role in the film. He co-authored the screenplay and designed the costumes. Consequently, Stone is very much an haute picture.
I just was given a sort of a carte blanche situation because there weren't too many people who were able to control or wanted even to control what I was doing at the
time. Stone is a trip.
And when you're on a bike, I mean a big bike, you've got all power, man.
The Gravediggers are on the move. A new breed of motorbike gang.
That's why we're here, man, together. Because when you're out there riding with the Gravediggers, what can stop it, man? What can stop it? We own the world.
They live in a fortress by the sea. Vietnam veterans. Stone started life. There are rules.
Look at me when I speak to you.
They don't seem to make a lot of friends. But now, somebody wants them dead. All of them. So the cops sent Stone.
It's a pig. Why don't you do something honest, like sell used cars to old ladies?
I'll kill you!
Stone is different. Take the trip.
I suppose because it was reflecting so much of what was going on in the world for our generation at the time, that was our focus. And I don't think anyone was particularly bothered about how confronting it was at the time.
Helen was sort of the brilliant young graduate from NIDA when she came out. Sandy was very much a star of the ensemble, as was Ken. And Ken, of course, was the star. He was Cranky Frankie McCoy of You Can't See Round Corners, which, of course, got an enormous press, particularly when he put his hand up Rowena Wallace's skirt in the opening episode.
I don't dig punch-ups at all. You know, I just revolts me. I can't see the sense in it at all. You know, I dig honour, and I dig love between fellow men, but
it was the time of slim waists and big cummerbunds and gypsy frocks, and I used to make the leather belts because I love leather and I love, you know, working it. Anyway, I used to load all the stuff on the back of my bike. I had a Norton Commando then, and down to Paddy's Market, and we'll sell the stuff at Paddy's Market. Well, Sandy would come by and, hi, yeah, what are you selling today, you know? But he said, right, I'm writing this movie, Stone, and you're going to be the star. Then there was no work going on. I did the various things like things you do in police series, like Matlock, Division 4. But me, an ex-cop, I don't like sort of doing police series. I started to get stuff where you'd go down to Melbourne, and you'd be dragged around the bush all day with blood all over your face saying, mother, mother. That was it, having been hit by an axe. I remember one particular thing. And after that, I sort of said, well, let's just have a look at the script, you know, to see what's in it before I say yeah. And of course, then you don't get any more work. Couldn't go to America because they didn't want any more out-of-work actors there. So we went to England.
Looking for someone?
Yeah. I'd been an actor probably since I was 11 years old. I started with the independent theatre as a young lad, and Sandy Harbert was working down the road at the ensemble, so we went through classical theatre. I went through NIDA. I worked for the Arts Council, and I was basically doing films and maybe Crawford's for money to pay the rent, and Sandy approached me about the film, and as soon as I heard bikes, I said, well, what do you reckon? You don't even need to pay me. Just give me a bike, I'll be fine.
I'd had a year out of school. I had intended to do something heady like medicine or vet science, but I thought I'll take a year off and bum around and see what happens. And during that year, I got involved with the counterculture, and the ideas of you know, serious careers sort of disappeared in a haze of blue smoke. And when Stone came along, I'd done one commercial for shampoo. And I went along to see Sandy about a non-speaking part in Stone. I landed a speaking role, and another sister of mine landed the part that I was supposed to have. She was at the time Vince Gill's girlfriend.
originally I was being controversial in Adelaide, which isn't hard to do. And some maniac rang me up and said, hey, you know, we've got a part in this thing. It's the nearest thing you'll ever get to playing Dracula. And I said, fine. And that was it.
I just jumped ship from the Royal Shakespeare Company, fell in love with a girl called Tina Ferguson, and turned up at an office in Ross Woods, and these horribly hairy people were there. And I thought, that's interesting.
And I said, I've got something for you. And he said, I hope it's a big something. And I said, yeah, it'll have to be. Yes, but apart from him, just about every other part was written for somebody I knew.
I said, what's the part? They said, it's the bikey perv. I said, you got me.
Ferret?
I'm not an actor, don't. My acting experience is high school plays.
However, you were the Ferret.
I rode the motorcycle in the famous head cut-off scene, decapitation scene.
So I arrived back off a plane, straight into filming, and I met all the guys. And it was good because I was an outsider coming in, which is what Stone's doing.
All the rest were living bikies, and they were aggro and they were, you know, substance using and stuff from time to time, I guess. And Ken has never had a smoke, a cigarette, or had a drink really in his life. He's the most healthy and perfect person. He doesn't have any problem with sort of macho, establishing his masculinity or anything like that. And also, he's the ultimate method actor. So if you cast him as Stone as the outsider with the gang, that's what he was.
Ken comes on the set in wardrobe, and he's in this white suit. Oh, God. I mean, the contrast value is just so enormous. I mean, all you're going to see is this guy, the white knight.
You have a red carnation?
You had a red carnation, yes. Good carnation.
Just a little relief.
Yeah.
No, that was portent for the final scene.
Yeah.
It's the first splash of blood.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, that deep, huh?
He was very good from a wardrobe girl's point of view because he supplied his own clothes. He was quite a leathersmith in those days, and he'd run up his own costume. I mean, the clothes that he wore that spawned a whole generation of leather gear.
We won't tell him we're coming.
I was also working, as were one or two other actors, in another capacity as wardrobe, standby wardrobe, plus general dog's body, and you know, quite a few of us were doing that.
Is there a cop on the phone for you, Amanda?
There were a lot of assistants on the shoot.
Oh, really, Inspector? Surely anyone can look after a pack of bike hoodlums. Or did you pick him because he has a university degree? Yes, I know he's a good policeman, but he's a good tennis player too, and we're one short here.
Most people supplied their own clothes for the shoot. Our job was just finding out which floor they'd been discarded on, or who'd left them where, and things like that.
But I always knew there wasn't enough money. I mean, the original budget was done with $650,000, and that would have been just a reasonable picture made by the standards of the time. But I remember I bumped into Mendy Brown, and he just has this incredible practical attitude. He's an old American producer. And he said, $650,000, you'll never get it. You'll never get it. You know, if you got it, you'll be sitting back on your deck chair. What you got to do is make it for $100,000. You got to steal everything. You know, you got to borrow everything. And it was so right. You know, you could just see this is right. You know, like we can't afford all that sort of stuff. So I ended up with a budget of $192,000. And, you know, I mean, it was just total insanity.
The main thing was I was Sandy's right-hand man. There wasn't anything I didn't do, and it was the best learning experience I could have possibly have had. Every day I was absolutely petrified that I would fuck up and something would go really badly wrong.
On the first day of shooting, Vincent Gill turned up on the set. Well, the first week did not involve any bikies. And he volunteered to just help out, making coffee or whatever. By lunchtime, he'd been adopted by the Grips crew, and they were getting him to lay dolly tracks and help them out moving things around and so on. In the second week, when the bikies arrived, Vincent turned up with his Dr. Death costume. But it made no difference to him or the crew. He was still a Grip. He continued to work as a Grip on that picture for 6 weeks, in between which he played the character of Dr. Death.
There was very little sense of Sandy as above us in the hierarchy. He achieved that extremely well. I wasn't really conscious of him as producer-director, much more as a fellow actor, with offering a few helpful suggestions here and there.
He lived up to the name Undertaker. Occasionally that got a bit hair-raising, but, you know, when he hadn't quite de-rolled out of a scene, you know, but that went for a few people.
It just came out of people the way they were. So we started to realise, hey, wait a minute, this is pretty good. You know, this is pretty good. We're saying something, and the feeling that we wanted to give came out sort of automatically.
Hey, Blue, get up.
Now we had 6 weeks of just one long party. That's what it was. 6-week party. It was good.
You think we're a pack of imbeciles, don't you?
Dope was really the you know, the currency of the day. So as far as I was aware, I don't think there were any sort of... Oh, there was a bit of hallucinating going on as well, probably. Certainly there was on film. It was portrayed. But I think, in spite of the fact that we were all... I mean, we weren't stoned all the time. There was a degree of discipline about what we were doing, you know. There was a sense in which you didn't get stoned until after... you know, unless it was required for the part, you saved it until the end of the day.
I remember at one point looking over, and it was just one of those sort of synchronous moments where Dewey Hungerford, septic. I looked up and there must have been a sandbag or whatever. It wasn't kind of secured all that well. And I just saw it rocking off there in slow motion, and it kind of fell down and hit Dewey on the forehead. But Dewey at that point had a joint in his hand, you know. And I remember he's just finishing it kind of like, and he had the impact, and he looked back at the joint and went, whoa, that's pretty good. Try some of this, you know.
I suppose really the culture divided into two groups, the people who were smoking and the people who weren't, people who were doing some sort of drugs and the people who weren't, and these were the people who were. It was completely part of the attitudes, really. I mean, people who had altered their perceptions, as they said in those days. So that's why the advertising slogan was "Take the Trip," basically, because it was an experience beyond the normal.
Your law sends young blokes to somebody else's country to fight people they know nothing about. As long as you keep on shooting them, they hang medals on you. When you don't shoot them anymore, they shut you in jail.
I did find that an amazing number of the, all you could say was outlaw motorcyclists, had some sort of military experience. And I did meet one guy who had been actually Digger of the Year in Vietnam, and he'd come back and become an outlaw motorcyclist.
The grave diggers, the gang, are all ex-diggers. They're all from various fields of war, mainly from Vietnam, but a couple of the older blokes from Korea. So the grave diggers can mean whatever you want, you know. The symbol being a skull, with the digger's hat on the skull.
Basically, the club started in 1978. First up, it was called the Vietnam Vets MC Australia. And it was a lead-on from the movie Stone.
He came out here from England, decided to stick around. Then he got drafted and was sent to Vietnam. That's where he met the Undertaker.
Must have been a hell of a trip. It's nothing to be proud of.
You there too, were you?
We all were. Except Septic. He was in Korea. And Hooks, too.
Yeah, and if they'd have known us all cats before, man, they never would have gone.
Myself, like most of the vets, were keeping their head down and didn't want to know about people. At that stage of our life, we didn't even admit we were Vietnam veterans, a hell of a lot of us anyhow.
I was counting the days to get back to Australia, and I had to march through Adelaide when we came back. I was in the 9 Battalion. We had to march through there with fixed bayonets because the crowd was hostile. You know, I mean, that's not what we were expecting to come back to.
When you've been conditioned into believing something, and you blow it, I mean, you really blow it, you get this incredible sense of shame. And it's funny, because you can always recognize fellow travelers.
And then when the movie was released, we went and saw it, and wow, it was different for the time that it was made. It was really radical.
The original film represented a society that would accept me, and the mainstream of society wouldn't accept me and couldn't care less.
If you ride in a pack, it's awesome. It gives you a feeling of well-being. Just to get out and just ride with the guys. And being on the bike clears your head out, right? Gives you time to sort a lot of things out in your head. If it wasn't for my bike, I'd have blown my head off.
Last year, I officially licensed the club to wear the Skull and Diggers hat. You know, it was done out of respect and admiration. And there they are, several thousand members, and committed to supporting one another and living the life on the road as much as possible.
Our program now is to go to the small towns and find the Vietnam veterans and Korean vets and Second World War vets we've found that are doing it really hard. The Vets Connect ride around Australia, we found 57 veterans.
And we pull these guys in that were living feral up the Western Australian coast and places like that. And just to bring them in, and when they came in, they even came in out of the bush and said, "You're Vietnam vets, can we talk to you?" And we've pulled them guys back in, and it's happening on a big scale now. And Bruce said that we're kids and stuff like that. We're doing stuff for the children's hospitals, and the schools will ring us up and they'll say, "Can we get a couple of you vets?" This is pre-Anzac Day sort of stuff. "Can we get a couple of you vets to come out and just have a talk to the kids and let them understand what it's all about?" And now they're asking us.
Within the club, there's a broad section, a cross-section of life in Australia. All have a common thread, apart from the Vietnam service, and that is that they're all adrenaline junkies. They quote a line from the film, "Once you've ridden a big bike really fast, who wants to do anything else?"
So hard to live. One day you got to go. If I'm glad for all the pain, I had the right to choose. Seems a heavy penalty. I know I'm gonna lose. I'll make the last cheer you on. Now, there you go. How's me flash? Now, here you are. How's me flash? Now, there you go. A million years or more, man has walked upon this earth. Every hour out there, every day, is wondering at his own world.
Out, isn't it? Nothing like it on what they can on Earth. Nothing like it. It's an experience for a lifetime, especially for the children, though. A lot of people are scared of bikes, a lot of children and that. This teaches them not to be scared or not to be scared of the noise.
I've been living like a bikie for the last 3 weeks. I usually do. With the parts I play, I try and create the role as much as I can. I've been riding bike for 3 or 4 weeks with this gear on, and I find the stop signs and maybe cafes, a lot of the bikies pull up and have a chat to me, and we've got a certain camaraderie going. We thumbs up on the road and wave to each other, and we talk about bikes.
But every morning, we'd come from various suburbs on the other side of the bridge. We'd all rendezvous just accidentally on the bridge, you know, on the entrance of the bridge, and we'd all come over, like the birds from Hitchcock's film, you know, all rendezvousing and tear-assing across the bridge. And my speedometer didn't work. And I don't know what the speedos went to in those days, but they were mile per hour. And I said to Hugh one morning, we're tearing across the bridge, and I said, "What are we doing?" And he said, 130 or whatever it was, 120. Holy God, we're doing 120, 130 mile an hour across the bridge. You know, 5 in the morning, okay, but we're still a bit dodgy.
Living the time.
Yeah.
It is a funeral, so don't wave or smile or hold up cards saying hi, Mum, or any of that sort of number.
The picture basically just developed. It was shot completely on the street and on locations. And it grew with the cultural input, both what we were putting into the bikie culture, because we became part of it, and what they were sort of reciprocating and putting back into us.
We started up out here, you know, we weren't nothing like the Angels or anything over in the States, but they got a bad name over there and it carried to the cops over here.
The guy's bigger than you, and you know you're going to cop a hiding. Well, the best thing to pick up something and batter him with it.
You use a chain for the simple fact that you don't use it, some other bastards are going to use it, and they're going to get you before you can get them, so you've got to use your chain first.
I think they're fantastic, fantastic human beings. I don't necessarily approve of them in any way, and yet I do approve of them in almost every way. I mean, they're ridiculous. They're just so exciting individuals. They're not necessarily terribly intelligent or compassionate or gentle or responsible. They can be all of those things and still be a bikie. But I mean, what's a bikie? There's maybe 400 in the city at the most, and each one of them has a different story and a different lifestyle. And, you know, what's a bikie, man? But I love them. Yeah, they're terrific.
What?
They scare me too.
Women are really good. We didn't bring any this weekend because it's a guys' weekend, you know. But you got to have a good woman every now and then.
There was a certain amount of tension because they were an unknown quantity. There's always an element of unpredictability, you know, with people who are genuine outlaws.
Hey man, it's the Black Hawks.
The fight was orchestrated with actual bikies, and who were very committed to the show and did a great job, but they were sort of paid, it was liquid remuneration.
I decided to go in and see Bob Howard, the accountant, and I gave him this invoice, and he said, I can't approve this. I said, well, you have to, because I've already spent it. And he's looking at it and he says, dope Hell's Angels? And I said, well, yes, that's how I paid them. That and 36 dozen beer, which were drunk in 1 hour on the day they all turned up for the big scene.
Well, if it isn't our old mates, the Gravy.
Birdman and his dodo. It was like one of those sort of days, and it was sort of like, oh God, I felt myself, I suppose, as an actor, I'm never going to quite pull this off.
Yeah.
I'm never going to quite look tough enough.
Who's writing this? I am.
Hey man, where'd you get that?
Somebody made me an offer I couldn't refuse.
Jack crap.
Fell over.
When we did a rehearsal, one of them, a bloke called Black Mac, who was the Sergeant of Arms of the club, he enjoyed it so much that he jumped in and took a few swings at Roger Ward.
This morning I had a bit of a fight scene with someone, and one of the guys joined in and threw me into the back of a utility. Well, I leapt down with the full intention of hitting whoever it was on the jaw. And he must have seen this in my eyes, but when I saw who it was, I realised I'd have 50 Hell's Angels on my back and it would have messed the day's shootings up. So I cooled it. But about 5 or 10 minutes ago, he came up to me and said he dug me because I had class. I said, what do you mean by that? He said, well, you were going to hit me 2 hours ago, weren't you? And I said, no, I wasn't. He said, look, I know you were, because I could see it in your eyes. We dig violence, he said, this is our thing. And I know you dig violence, so to me, you've got class, you're one of my boys.
Their own values are mainly based on loyalty and mateship and honour. Honour's very important to them. You can do anything to a bikie and he'll laugh most of the time if you do it with enough style. But you can't insult his club or his friends.
We were staging a fight, and I'm behind this one.
Good place to be.
And he turns around and he says, all Hell's Angels are poofters. I said, thanks, Roger.
Great, Roger.
A great man. Just, I love you so much.
That was the worst moment of my entire life. If I had a gun, I would have shot him.
But I honestly didn't have.
I had a gun.
You did.
Call it! Call it, man. Take it easy. Come on, you want to get heavy. Take it easy. Come on, you want to get heavy? Come on, pass off. How are we going?
We're dealing with a bikie gang who live by their own rules and their own laws and so on. And part of that is no compromise. And once we got into our costumes and we were riding around on our bikes and dealing with other sort of motorcycle people, gangs basically, the feeling really started to print itself through the group, onto me, through the crew, onto everything we did. And I'm sure that went right into the editing room. You know, it got to this no step back under any circumstances, don't give any ground, wear your colours with pride type of thing. And that's how the picture was really thrown out there to say, yeah, you know, like, take this.
Sydney's Forum Cinema and the world premiere of the controversial new Australian film, Stone. Special guests are the Hells Angels and the Lone Wolf Motorcycle Clubs, who roar up to the theatre in style.
One day you gotta go.
Producer-director of Stone, Sandy Hubbard, accompanies star Helen Morse and production team Mike Robinson and David Hannay. Other stars attending include Roger Ward, Dewey Hungerford and Hugh Keys-Byrne. Full of optimism are John Fraser of BEF Film Distributors and Senator Douglas McClelland, Minister for the Media. Billy Green wrote the sensational soundtrack music, which is sung by Doug Parkinson.
Like absolutely everybody that made it and everybody that was in it turned up. And I suppose, you know, that's probably what I remember most about it.
I remember all the bikes out the front, and I thought to myself, God, if these guys don't like it, I mean, the real bikies, if they don't like it, what's going to happen? And they were all upstairs, and I think the remainder of us, the good guys, were downstairs, and they were kind of hurling sort of stubbies and things down from upstairs and stuff. I mean, just monitoring the people downstairs. So obviously they didn't riot because they didn't because they must have enjoyed it a lot.
We all raced to the premiere to see when it first came out. You know? When we got there, the police weren't going to let us in because they thought it was going to start a big revolution or something in the bike scene. But we eventually all got in, had a good time.
There it was, the picture we'd put all this energy and effort and passion and commitment into. It was a terrific opening, there's no question about that. We had a great time. The following day, the Friday the 29th, we started to look at the press, the critical press. Big tabloid headline in the Telegraph. Stone the Crows. This movie is a stinker. Mike Gibson, sports writer. The Telegraph. Bikies jeer Stone. National Times. As big a headline as they could possibly have given us. Australian film industry crashes with bike gang epic. Now that was a real killer.
There was that split in the culture at the time. There were the people who were in the 70s culture, and there were the people who were still rejecting it, especially in terms of Australia. They wanted to sort of say, you don't have the right to be so arrogant and say this is the way things are. You have to be Australian and be ironic and laugh at it or undercut it or diminish it or something. To take something as seriously as we didn't seem to be part of the establishment attitude at the time.
You have to remember that it's still fairly early in the revival of Australian cinema. You have to remember that the significant quality successes haven't happened yet. I think I'm right in saying that it was later in 1974 that the sequels to Barry Mackenzie and Alvin Purple came out around Christmas time that year. So we're still really in that sort of fairly
lowbrow area, but celebrating the fact that at last, after all these years, there's at least some Australian film being made and released and getting popular, getting audiences. So, but still, there's still a lot of caution and there's still uncertainty because we don't quite know in 1974 where it's all going to go and how long it's going to last and is it all too good to be true and so on.
We sat around on the weekend, Sandy and I, and we thought, we're dead. But the calls from Greater Union on Monday.
When it opened at the Forum, fortunately, it broke the all-time box office record for the week, and the Forum was the second biggest house in town. It ran for 15 weeks at the Forum. It also broke the record at the Forum in Melbourne, 2 forums, and the Sturt in Adelaide, and we only got Best Weekend or something in Brisbane.
Well, it was the first motorbike movie I'd ever seen, and it's the only motorbike I've ever seen made in Australia, and it's about the Australian way of life on motorbikes, not American or English or all the other ones you see, like the Easy Rider and that was a good movie, but it's how the way the Americans do it. The Australian way of life, and even the language in the movie it's Australian. You know what they're saying, and it's no crap about it. It's just what they say is the way we all are.
Well, it's just that they're exciting, aren't they? They're good news. I mean, they're more film-worthy than a man going to work on a bus.
Everyone involved in it was noticed because it was a film that drew attention to itself.
I became known as somebody who would take their clothes off fairly readily.
Well, I guess I first became aware that there was a cult element involved with Stone, probably in about the 4th week. In the 3rd week, I went up to the opening of the picture at Cairns, and there were about 200 bikies at the airport waiting for me. And we did a big parade through the town and had a party. The next week, I flew down to Surfers Paradise for the opening in Surfers Paradise. And there was another big congregation of bikies. And when I had a look at them, I recognised about half of them. And I went, hey, I know you guys, you were up there in Cairns. And they said, yeah, we rode down.
As soon as I seen her, I wanted to watch it again and again and again and again. And then we even started having Stone video nights. We used to just get a bunch of guys together and go and watch the Stone movie. And that was our night out. And then we'd get our bikes out and rip them up. It's an amazing amount of people in Newcastle that actually follow Stone. Thousands of them. As soon as you mention Stone, they just come out of the woodwork. Some of them haven't even ridden a motorbike. For some unknown reason, they watch the movie and they get hooked by the freedom of being able to just do what you want to do, sort of thing. Mix with anyone, there's nobody getting condemned, and just freedom. I was talking to Sandy Hubbard one day and we thought, why not start a Stone fan club? And Sandy said, well, it revolves around bikes, so why not let's make it a sort of a bike club involved as well. So that's how we decided to call it the Stone Social Club.
It's got to the point where now they've made all the Gravediggers honorary members of the club. And whenever possible, the Gravediggers get out there and ride with them. Zonk, Johnny Ivkovich is involved with them, and Septic, Dewey Hungerford, they're both involved with the club.
Oh, look, it's just the most amazing feeling. You're with icons, you're with memorabilia, and to be standing next to it, I mean, it's just the best feeling. It's not about being photographed with them or anything like that. It's just that I can say to myself, I was there. That's what pleases me most, and I think most of these guys. It's about just sharing the same thing that they shared, and letting them know that we've been right beside them for 25 years, basically, you know, and letting them know they're not alone and that they told our story their way, and it's just the best story. It's a great story.
Lester's our burnout king, that he does the whole Stone in signature on his bike.
They're a dedicated and mad group, basically. A lot of very good riders in the club, and even though they do favour Kawasaki Z900s, it's a club that's completely open to everything from Harleys to chook chasers and postie bikes, really.
I know most of the Gravedigger guys. I get myself involved with them. I talk to them on the phone and go out and see them, and I actually just feel I'm part of the movie now.
Critics and bikies alike have acclaimed it as the first honest appraisal of their lifestyle. Its makers have high hopes for a similar response when Stone is released overseas.
Next thing, of course, was international sales. And the obvious place to make sales for a picture internationally is the Cannes Film Festival. By that time, the Australian Film Development Corporation, which was the major investor in Stone, had been taken over by the Australian Film Commission. And they had decided to mount a major presence at the Cannes Film Festival in May. So in '75, I took a 35mm print, and with Helen Ross, we went to the film festival to see what was going on. Off we went, we producers economy class, and off went all the AFC officials first class, which was, it was okay because they came down and visited us. And sometimes I think we might have been given a glass of champagne, or to share at least. So when we got to Cannes, everybody was basically in culture shock and jet lag, and they sort of sat staring. And you found out that really the way it works is you do have to actually locate the picture in the minds of all of the buyers who have come to Cannes to get, as they call it, product. So basically I sat there for the 2 weeks of the thing and watched it happen and tried to see how it work, and met a lot of people. Had 3 screenings of the picture, and as everybody says, they're all terribly successful. Nobody's ever had an unsuccessful screening at Cannes, it seems. We were being encouraged by the AFC officials to make sales, make sales, make sales. And people, honestly, I was offered Greece for $2,500. That's it, go home, you know? And I laughed. You know, $2,500. Stone was earning that every month, you know, like, at least. And basically, I can understand it. The pressure was on the AFC officials to look as if they hadn't all wasted their time, and that all sales are made to all countries of the world. Well, they were giving them away. And I think this started a bit of a reputation for me not being cooperative.
There was a very strong perception that by the incoming AFC, that what the AFDC had been doing, which were kind of commercial pictures, like Stone, you know, like Barry Mackenzie, were not nice pictures. You know, we don't want to do that anymore. You know, there was a kind of bourgeois, trendy leftism, which sort of liked the idea of seeing girls in white frocks drifting through the environment. I mean, very beautiful, but clearly what we had done was not in that environment, if you will.
When I was in London negotiating with 20th Century Fox to invest in a new picture of mine in 1978, I remember the April edition of Screen International, they took out a 16-page Australian film industry advertisement. But unfortunately, they didn't include Stone in any of it. And that was also promoting the London Film Festival, which was running like 32 Australian pictures. You wouldn't have thought there were 32 Australian pictures in 1978. Well, once again, strangely enough, even though I was in London at the time, there was a 35mm print of Stone in London at the time. And they were flying the Australian 35mm prints of pictures called, like, Barney, out to the London Film Festival. They not only did not, but would not include Stone. And there you are dealing with somebody who is the head of an international motion picture company. You're telling him that your picture has had a big impact in Australia, you know, and he's going, well, why aren't they showing it at the Australian London Film Festival? And you have to actually say, well, the Australian film establishment people at the moment don't like me. They don't like my picture, which is not what you want to be able to present to these people. You want to be, you know, the heart of the establishment.
The cold shoulder that just grew through the late 70s, from 75 through to 1980, it was a chill wind. The icicles were in my beard and in Sandy's hair.
Because the AFC had rights over the picture and didn't do anything with it over the next 5 years, I basically broke my contract. And I just went to Cannes in 1980 alone. So that meant that when I had a screening, I had to compete with an Australian picture because they were screening all day too.
It was a big year for the straight Australians. I mean, Breaker Morant was in, and Breaker Morant had this great pose of these guys clip-clopping down the Croisette as the Australian light horse. So we decided to get our own horses together.
I had 100 bikies doing this big parade.
The noise as it bounced off the Martinez and bounced off the Carlton, and we stopped Cannes. I was in the coffin. We got off a bike and we walked into the foyer of the Carlton, and we still had helmets on. And Ken Watts was standing there, who was the chair of the AFC, who accorded us more than a fair degree of loathing. And he looked at us with a look of revulsion, repulsion, and a degree of wonder, I think. And then just slipped back into the shadows.
And we got international press and TV, and I made some very major sales. I made a sale to Japan for $75,000 up front, and a sale to Germany for 100,000 Deutschmarks up front, and got my $10,000 for Greece, which I'd been offered 2,005 years before, and so on.
I think we really pissed them off.
If I thought of the whole 24-hour period, I guess it would probably cover every emotion you could possibly imagine. Everything from complete mutual bliss to complete loss, to complete failure, the feelings of having killed somebody. And yet, the culture dictates that that tragedy must be overcome by celebration of life. And if you ever know a friend of yours who's a motorcyclist who's died and you go to the funeral or the wake, all you do is tell jokes. All you do is get drunk, all you do is have a good time, you know, and celebrate that person's life. And fortunately, there were 8,000 or 10,000 of us to celebrate that life, and we did it.
Totally legal.
Who's got a spare 2 tickets?
Thanks, buddy.
You know, I meet young people, they know every bloody line in the film, you know.
I reckon there'll be 20 odd there or something like that. Bigger than Woodstock.
This is awesome for me. I think that you're remembered by a lot of people for the things that you were a part of that they like.
Poor old Toad, eh? They won't give him a kiss. Here, Toad. I'll give you a kiss.
Who are you staring at?
Just watch your back, Maggie.
And mainly the anniversary stone patches, which these ones which they're selling.
How many days have you done today?
About 50. They just started.
Still a cult movie for me, being the anniversary, and we've got a few rocks out in the front here with like that one stone for 25 years, and we've already sold the best one, still ripped for 25 years, and we've got this sort of stuff over here. This is all recycled stuff, which is on the spin out side of things. This is a colander from the kitchen, our toaster that electrocuted us, so now it's up here. This is a spaceship over here. My son made this. He's only 10, but that used to be a Lazy Susan.
We know one of the original members in it, do we? We've known him for a long time. And, bag him a little bit about being in the movie, you know? Septic, yes. We still give him shit now, but, you know.
I only had about 3 words in the whole movie, and we just keep repeating them over and over to him to G him up.
Oh, I had a couple of lines that seemed like everybody remembers. Because at the grave, at the first of the film, I said,
"Hey, Undertaker, here come the pigs, man."
And everybody remembers his line. So they all walk up to me and say, "Hey, Undertaker, here come the pig." You know, and you get this. Well, what the hell? Shit happens. Huh?
Why have they cut that out? If the nigger sniffer the segment where they sniff his eggers and throw them in Gator's grave.
Sandy's here.
It's missing.
I'll ask him about it because I'd like to know. I didn't realise that. I hadn't seen that.
The funny thing was we were very low budget. In fact, I never saw the picture in continuous projection till the world premiere. And of course, on the opening night, I saw it. And I thought, oh, God, you know, I've really made my point there and I could have got out there. Really, you know, I don't need that subplot. So I went back to the distributor and I said, look, I want to shorten this picture. I really do think I can take 20 minutes out of it. And they said, no, it's a smash, don't touch it. You know, they've already seen it twice and they'll burn the cinema down. But when the 5-year distribution contract ran out, I then took the picture to Cannes, and before I took it, I did a cut.
They've missed the knicker sniffing section that they...
I'm surprised about that.
They throw it in the grave.
I haven't seen that cut. I've got one of the original versions that I think a brother-in-law gave me years ago in the 70s, and it's R-rated. I mean, it'd be G now.
Look, I reefed these off a Sheila down in Dubbo. Very fragrant.
I was involved in organising a screening of the film in Melbourne for the Fringe Film and Video Festival in '95. It was a 9:30 screening at the Chinatown Cinema in Burke Street, and you know, completely out of the blue, we had 800 or 900 people turn up for a 550-seat cinema. You know, just fucking sitting on the floor and standing in the aisles, and I mean, it went completely off. It was just an incredible experience, and there was a real mix of, you know, guys who were like of the generation when the film was made, you know, who were still riding Quacker Nines, and you know, the generations that had come after them who were very much into bike culture. And then there was a complete flip side of that. There was the inner suburban Melbourne black-clad nihilist intellectual set, you know, who were into it for other cultural reasons, and you know, it was a real sense of community of people where in any other context they'd be sneering at each other, I think, you know.
I think it was just expected that Sandy would go on and make what I thought he was going to do was, you know, Drums of Myrrh, the Ian Idris book, which, yeah, he was hell-bent on doing that.
I mean, he spoke to me, I don't know, over months, probably years, about Drums of Myrrh and how he saw it and how it would happen. I mean, but he just never got it going.
For 9 years I worked on Drums of Myrrh, And when the rights were lost to me, I almost laid down and died for a year. But the work has all enriched me. It's made me stronger, and it's improved my understanding of not only just show business and movies, but of the world and concepts of what goes on this planet.
One would think he would have written his own, you know, I mean, it's like Baz Luhrmann making Strictly Ballroom. I mean, that guy can just fucking make anything after that. And any filmmaker who does that, it's like an unwritten rule. You make a successful film, mate, that's it. You know, you can do anything you like. But not so for Sandy. And maybe that was just a product of the time. I think it says a lot about this country, but it also says something about Sandy as well.
I was put in a position at 31, like the things that I never thought I'd achieve till I was 51 or so had started to happen. And then, with the incredible support of the people that made the picture, it was a success. This put me in a position where it looked like I'm producer, writer, director, star, you know, king ego, which may or may not have been true. And also, it also put me in a position of knowing that's the way to work.
You know, the money people, you know, they're insecure enough about their creative contribution. You know, when they came up against, I guess, his fairly inflexible vision, something had to give. And, of course, you know, tragically, we all know that, you know, money kind of is the big ace, you know.
It's always fascinated me that Sandy Harbert never made another film, because although Stone was a bit of a disappointment, it still had a lot of qualities, and I'd like to have seen him go on and do more things.
I haven't had a penny of investment from the Australian Film Commission, even though they made double their money back. But then again, I haven't been offered one day's work in the entire film and television industry in 25 years by any single human being, except Peter Armstrong, my stunt supervisor, who got me one day's work as a stunt driver for the ABC. And I had to say to him, Peter, I do appreciate it, but stuntmen could probably use the money better than I could. Apart from that, not a day's work. So that was like the response from my fellows. But yet, the audience just won't leave it alone. And they support me. You know, the support is unbelievable. It's always seemed symbolic to me of a working class and a ruling class. And they don't seem to relate. They just don't seem to relate. And Stone is like some sort of symbol of that.
We're here to commemorate the 25th anniversary of the Stone movie. What I would like you to do now is to put your hands together for the director of the movie, Mr. Sandy Harbert, and the original Grave Diggers.
I'd like to introduce the person who played Stone, Mr. Ken Shorter. Secondly, the man who played Zonk, Mr. John Ifkovich. The man who played Bad Max, Jim Walsh. The man who played the ferret, Totally Pissed, Peter King. In from Royal Canyon tonight. We have the infamous Septic, as played by Billy Hungerford. I want to thank you all for coming here tonight. We're going to get out of the way now, all have a good time. We all know what we experience in this lifestyle, and I hope we can make it grow and continue to be brothers and sisters. Thank you very much.
Brothers and sisters, let's also remember fallen comrades.
Right, let's hear it for Sandy Harbert and the original Grave Diggers from Stone.
There was all that promise in so many of these people, and where did it go? You know, there's a sort of poignancy about that for me.
Do you think there was something else they deserved? What did they deserve?
They deserve better things, indeed. Yeah, than life gave them. But who knows? Who knows what they got in as an alternative?
We had so much fun. You just can't imagine. You can't wait to go out and do it all over again. I can't wait for the Stone 2000. I can't wait for the Stone 30. You know what I mean? Because It's about uniting all these people. You know, no one knows anyone, but we're united under the one, you know, patch, and that to me is a force.
We've got a 12-year-old daughter that just loves it. She loves the movie. She wants to be part of it too. She wants to join the club. She's 12 years old. It's flowing onto her as well. And it's just the reason she gives when you ask her about it. It's natural.
It's never going to stop, is it? Not with people like us around.
Oh yes, my tattoo is a bit of a collection. It's a shot out of the Stone movie. It's a shot of riding a Z, following a Z up a mountain road. If I'm not out on my bike, if I'm at work, all I've got to do is just have a look at that, and it just reminds me of something that really makes me happy.